The scent of lacquered walnut and an expensive peppery cologne greets me as I push through the heavy glass doors of Ward Global, 30 minutes ahead of schedule. The quarterly board session isn't until 9, but there was a tightness in my father's voice during yesterday's brief call that refused to loosen overnight. Routine budget housekeeping, Richard Ward had said, as if the words could iron his tone flat. They didn't. The executive level stretches out in museum-quiet elegance. Cream carpet dense enough to swallow footsteps, paneled walls that gleam under recessed lighting, ancestral portraits of wards in stiff collars and harder expressions tracking me down the corridor. In my charcoal suit and low heels, I feel like a misfiled document, part of the family alphabet but shelved in the wrong section. I belong to the research wing, to whiteboards and graphite smudges, not to the place where decisions are dressed in silk and signatures. Muted voices spill through the boardroom door, left just a finger's width ajar, a ribbon of bright light slicing across the hall. Just sign, Richard. Titan Core will wire the funds the moment we close, says an unfamiliar man, clipped and efficient. 3.5 for what we've sunk into that unit is daylight robbery, comes my father's low baritone. It's generous for unproven tech, purrs Vanessa, my sister, her assurance the kind that opens doors and locks out nuance. My heart hammers. They're discussing my division. My research. I push the door fully open. Hinges sigh, foreheads snap up. My father, impeccable in Italian wool. Vanessa Ward, immaculate in a red blazer whose buttons probably cost more than my rent. Alan Pierce, our CFO, hunched like he's trying to fold himself into invisibility. And a narrow-shouldered stranger with rimless glasses and a pen already poised. A stack of papers scatters across the table. One slithers toward me and stops face up. Quantum Stability Group, Asset Transfer Agreement. Before I can grasp it, Vanessa's manicured hand whisks it away. Elena, my father says first, eyebrows knitting. The meeting is in half an hour. You're selling my life's work without telling me? The question rips out of me raw. It's time to rein in your little science project, he says, smoothing his cufflink. 6 years of spend and nothing investors can hold. Nothing to hold? My hands tremble. We stabilized quantum coherence at room temperature for 17 minutes. Do you know what that means? Vanessa laughs, bright and brittle. Elena's basement tinkering, she tells the stranger who smiles in polite complicity. Perpetual promises. No product. I look to Alan for oxygen. He studies his shoes. Memory flares. Grandmother Edith's papery hand wrapping mine 3 months before she died. They won't understand visionary work, Eli, she'd whispered. I do. That's why the trust is structured the way it is. Protect your mind. Protect your name. 6 years of 18-hour days, of a tiny team trading weekends for whiteboards, of reports my father didn't read and jokes Vanessa delivered across leaning tables. Your expensive hobby. And now this, all floating our future for a quick 3.5. That unit has burned nearly 12 million. My father says gentler, as if modulation is mercy. The board thinks we cut losses. The board hasn't met, I reply. A formality. He tips his head toward the scattered papers. Voting shares are aligned. Titan Core is being quite gracious. The room drifts for a beat, my legs turn to wood. Dignity is all I can carry. I pivot toward the door, then stop as a cool clarity slides in like a new lens. Remember who owns those patents, Eli. Remember what I filed. Remember the trapdoor in the charter. Grandmother again. I turn back, find my father's eyes. Before you sign anything else, you might want to confirm who actually owns the underlying patents. A small, precise silence falls. Confusion sparks in my father's gaze, then something that looks like doubt. Vanessa's pen stalls midair. Alan finally looks up and I watch understanding dawn like a guilty sunrise. I ease the door shut. The soft click sounds like thunder. Revolution begin. Sun slants through my blinds as I pace my living room, phone pressed to my ear, then to my palm, then back to my ear. 6 years encased in files. 6 years they tried to sell for scraps. When Margot Chen finally picks up, her voice is already in motion. I'm outside, she says. And I brought the cavalry. I open the door to Margot, blunt bob, sharper suit, Harvard Law in her marrow. And Dr. Ian Patel, my research partner, his arms cradling an accordion file like a newborn. You were right, Margot says as she sweeps past, her heels ticking decisive seconds across hardwood. We found it all. Ian flips open his laptop on my counter while Margot fans papers across my coffee table in a star map of betrayal. Your father has been blocking every funding request for 3 years. Margot taps a bulging file. Rubber stamped to die in committee. And that's just the prologue. Ian rotates the screen. Recognize this? A deck beams up, Vanessa Ward's name emblazoned. The slide shows our quantum stability algorithms, ours, dressed in a new font. She's been stealing our research. My voice is hollow. How? Jason in IT, Ian says. She convinced him to grant admin access under the guise of a security audit. She's been scraping our servers for nearly a year. I sit the room tilting. Presented as hers? Collected innovation bonuses that dwarf our lab's entire annual budget, Ian says, voice suddenly edged. Margot slides over a folder stamped Ward Global. Internal correspondence. Inside, emails between Vanessa and my father spanning years. Don't worry about Elena's funding requests, reads one from Richard. The board won't see them. I make sure. Another from Vanessa. Dinner with Titan Core went well. They're very interested in quantum stability. I told them my division is making strides. My father's reply glitters cold. Good. Elena's little project is a bleed. When it's time we'll transition the IP. Family legacy, individual credit. My hands shake. I picture weekends traded, reports ignored, jokes about my hobby delivered over veal. I look at Margot's folded arms, at Ian's steady jaw. We're going back, I say standing. Now. An hour later we walk through Ward Global's lobby. The receptionist buzzes us through on reflex. In the elevator Margot hands me a heavy document. Your grandmother was surgical, she says. The patents sit in the Edith Ward Trust under your name. Untouchable by corporate sleight of hand. The boardroom freezes when I enter. My father at the head. Vanessa beside him, burgundy and icicle smooth. Alan in his crease of a chair. 3 board members I know from golf photos. Elena, my father warns, this is a private meeting about my division. I step in. Margot and Ian follow, the door closing with a soft finality. So I'll stay. We're simply realigning assets, Vanessa says, smile taut as cello wire. Nothing you need fret over. You mean theft, Ian says, setting a flash drive on the table. Of intellectual property that doesn't belong to you. Margot's presence fills the room like a verdict. We've prepared documentation of systematic IP theft, fraudulent representations, and misappropriation of company resources. Leather folders glide to each board member. Dr. Ward's patents are funded by the Edith Ward Trust. Any attempted sale to Titan Core constitutes corporate fraud. Color drains from Vanessa's face as she schemes. You're being dramatic, Elena, my father says, but doubt rasps beneath the baritone. This is business, not personal. Stealing my work is personal, I say evenly. So is strangling my funding while Vanessa parades my breakthroughs as hers. Vanessa's palm thumps the table. Innovation isn't real until I can sell it. You hide in labs, I build connections. You take credit, Ian says, and with a keystroke her emails with Jason burst onto the wall. Login credentials, file trees, timestamps. A silver-haired board member frowns deeper with each slide. Richard, she says, slow and careful, if this is accurate. It isn't, my father snaps. Elena's always imagined persecution. Playing scientist while the rest of us run a company. He stands, towering, eyes cold enough to frost metal. I made you. I can unmake you. You'll never work in this industry again. 6 years ago I would have shattered on those words. Today they harden me. The patents are mine, I say softly. Grandmother filed them as a moat. She saw what you refused to see. Silence cracks. Papers rustle. Even Vanessa stops flipping. The silver-haired director straightens. We reconvene tomorrow. All board members present. Full documentation. Her gaze pins my father. No exceptions. My father reddens. Control loosens a notch. Adjourned until tomorrow, she declares. I gather my things and reach the door. Vanessa's voice knifes the quiet. What happened to family loyalty, Elena? Grandmother would be ashamed. I pause, hand on the brass. Grandmother knew exactly who you were, I say without turning. That's why the trust skips you. Thunder again. In the hall, Margot squeezes my arm. Round one, yours, she murmurs. Tomorrow is the war. I nod. It isn't just my lab anymore. It's the truth. The reckoning. And yes, the revolution. The PR blast lands while I stare at a hairline crack in my ceiling. My phone pings, PR Newswire. Already know. Ward Global addresses leadership concerns in emerging tech unit. Quotes from my father about his deep concern for Elena's well-being and recent erratic behavior. Vanessa in paragraph 3, heartbroken over family matters spilling into business. The subtext is a sledgehammer. She's unstable. I hurl the phone. Bounces off the couch like a joke. My apartment feels suddenly too small. Shelves sagging with quantum texts, coffee table buried in journals, graduated cylinders perched on the kitchenette because I ran calculations at 2 a.m. Unknown caller flashes. I answer. Dr. Ward? Security. Your keycard is deactivated. Your team's on administrative leave pending review. Pi team. The 2 words scrape my throat. Director's orders, he says, neutral as a clock. The line goes dead. I sit while the sun crawls across the floorboards. A text from Ian. Don't panic. Trust me. 3 sharp knocks. I look through the peephole. 5 figures in my narrow hall, arms laden with bankers' boxes. Elena, open up, Ian says. We brought the important bits. They file in. Ian, Mira Rao, Louise Park, Jonah Kim, Talia Brooks. Faces set not in fear but in purpose. You've got about 20 minutes before they realize we rolled a truck, Ian says, muscling a portable server toward my wall outlet. Show us power strips. What is all this? I ask even as muscle memory clears surfaces. Equipment. Drives. Lab notebooks that still smell like solvent and coffee. We saw this coming, Mira says, grinning like a fox. 6 months ago when your sister started asking oddly precise questions about our encryption. You knew. We knew something, Ian says, threading cables. We've lived with your family long enough to know when the vultures start circling. Louise sets a neat pyramid of rugged drives on my table. Triple off-site backups. Redundant mirrors. And weekends at my place, Jonah adds, pushing his glasses up. Better espresso than the lab. Talia lifts a flash drive like a trophy. And this is the crown jewel. 3 weeks of leapfrog on the algorithm. They don't even know it exists. A knock interrupts. Ian freezes, nodding for quiet. I peek. Alan Pierce, alone, hunched, glancing down the hall like a man in a spy novel. I slip out and pull the door nearly shut behind me. 5 minutes, he says. Please. The fluorescent hallway hums. I knew, he says, voice stripped. About the sale. About Vanessa scraping the servers. About today's smear. I did nothing because I was a coward. He swallows. I'm done with that. He passes me a folder. Vanessa's division hasn't produced original work in years. It's M&A wrapped in buzzwords. Here's the forensic trail. I don't open it. Why now? He finally meets my eyes. Richard built with brute force. You can bend physics. I saw every member of your team turn down Titan Core's offers this morning. $500,000 apiece to jump ship. They all said no. The thin smile. Your father can't compute loyalty he can't buy. That makes you dangerous to him. After he leaves, I find my team haloed by laptop glow. They'll come for you next, I say. Jobs. References. They already tried, Talia says, sliding her phone over with recruiter texts promising fresh starts far from the Ward situation. Titan Core dangled a corner office, Jonah says. I told them I don't work for thieves. Mira nods. Your grandmother funded my doctorate. There are debts paychecks can't repay. Her name sends me to the shelf where I keep Edith's letters in a worn leather portfolio. Between birthday notes and recipe cards is the one I half remembered. Written 2 weeks before she died. My hands shake as I unfold it. The charter amendment is filed with Harrington, she wrote in her tidy script. If Richard tries to appropriate your work, Article 16 shifts the votes. He never reads the fine print, darling. He never has. We work until the sky pales. While my team catches sleep in rotations, I swim company documents with fresh eyes. Near dawn. There. Article 16, Section 3, Paragraph 7. The hinge on which the door swings. You rigged the bylaws, you beautiful pirate, I whisper to her photo as first light threads my blinds. 3 buzzes snap me awake. USPTO. Quantum Stability Algorithm Patent granted. NSF. Breakthrough designation confirmed. A third. Initial licensing interest beginning at $4.2 billion. I stare at my sleeping team. At the boxes. At Alan's file. At Edith's ink. They have no idea what's about to hit Ward Global like a wave. The boardroom smells like coffee and unease. 13 directors in leather chairs. Curiosity knits with concern. Dorothy Whitaker, silver-haired and unflappable, grandmother's oldest friend, sits at the head. My father checks his watch for the 3rd time. Vanessa examines her cuticles. Alan studies a water glass as if it contains courage. Margot squeezes my arm. Ready. I smooth a suit I chose on purpose. Clean lines, nothing ostentatious. I've been ready for 6 years. We enter with our legal team, portfolios in hand. Chairs shift. My father rises, color already climbing his neck. This is a closed session, he says. Elena, take your circus. I called this emergency meeting, Dorothy says, knuckles light on the gavel. We'll hear Dr. Ward. The formality lands like a bell. Vanessa's brows jump. I take the screen. My team distributes leather binders. This is absurd, Vanessa snaps, standing. My sister is attempting to hijack work funded by Ward Global. She hasn't been herself since grandmother passed. This is. I move we adjourn and handle this privately, my father says. Second, mutters Vernon, the golf partner. Dorothy glances at the first tab, then shakes her head. Motion denied. Proceed, Dr. Ward. The patents for the quantum stability algorithm are registered to me personally. I begin, voice steady, funded solely by the Edith Ward Trust. See Section 1. Paper whispers ripple as pages turn. Further, I click, letting the NSF seal glow on the screen. The National Science Foundation designated our breakthrough a technology of national significance. Initial licensing interest begins at $4.2 billion, not the $3.5 million in the Titan Core term sheet you tried to execute yesterday. The air leaves a few lungs at once. Nonsense, my father says. No quantum. The Department of Defense disagrees, Margot says smoothly. See Section 3. As do MIT's Quantum Center and 7 major tech firms who filed preliminary bids. Vanessa's face thins. Bluff, she says, but her voice wobbles. No, I say and shift the slide. But speaking of claims, the FBI has questions about your unit's research for the last 3 years. I nod to tab 4. You'll find the forensic accounting. I step to the center where I can meet every pair of eyes. And one more thing, Section 5. A clause in the founding charter inserted by my grandfather and reinforced by my grandmother. Pages flip. Pen still. In the event of attempted appropriation of intellectual property, voting shares automatically migrate to the wronged party. I look at my father. As of yesterday's attempted sale, I am the controlling shareholder of Ward Global. For a heartbeat, the room is a dropped glass. Then questions erupt at me, not at him. Fear flickers in my father's eyes for the first time in my life. He pushes back his chair. This meeting is over. My attorneys will. The meeting isn't adjourned, Richard. I say, Richard, not Dad. Please sit. He freezes. Slowly he folds back into leather. Dorothy touches the gavel. I believe we have questions for our new majority shareholder. I nod. My pulse is a drum, but my voice is iron. The revolution isn't coming. It's here. The boardroom looks different when you're the one holding the gavel, even if the wood and leather haven't changed. My nameplate sits at the head where my father presided for 3 decades, polished brass catching the morning light. 1 week into the chair, the leather still feels stiff beneath me, as if the seat itself doesn't quite know me yet. Directors file in with careful smiles. Eyes flick between me and the 2 empty chairs reserved for Richard and Vanessa. Alan Pierce slips in quietly, a nod in my direction, his normally rounded shoulders just a touch straighter. When my father and sister arrive, the temperature drops. Vanessa's scarlet blazer broadcasts defiance. Richard wears the pinstripe armor of a man who used to win by walking into a room. Elena, Richard says, no greeting, just my name used like a warning. He sits without waiting. Vanessa follows, chin high. This meeting will come to order. I announce, surprised at the steadiness of my own voice. Richard slides a folder across the table. A proposal, he says. For family reconciliation. For the company's good. Vanessa leans forward. Imagine the headlines, she coos. Daughter's hostile takeover tears Ward legacy in two. Investors hate drama, Elena. Make this ugly and the stock will dive. Their lawyer, cheeks heavy and tone heavier, produces a document. Cease and desist regarding your use of Ward family IP, he intones. The family name is trademarked. Your grandmother's trust cannot supersede corporate bylaws. The old version of me would have shrunk. That woman is gone. Before we address your concerns, I say, tapping my tablet, allow me to introduce Project Helios. The wall brightens. A modern facility, all glass and clean white corridors, quietly thriving in a converted warehouse 30 miles from here. We built it in the shadows of their indifference. Funded as always by Edith. While you were busy undermining the lab, I continue, swiping through gleaming images, we achieved quantum coherence for 78 minutes, verified by independent observers. We've ported that stability into protein-folding algorithms with 3 drug candidates already identified. Early in vitro data looks promising. A muscle jumps in Richard's jaw. Our carbon capture prototypes met DOE thresholds last quarter, I add. And the federal consortium awarded $7 billion in multi-year contracts contingent on continued performance. Vanessa's pen slips from her fingers and clatters on the tabletop. Alan sits up a full inch taller. Ward Global's valuation has risen 70% since the patent news last week. I finish. Any questions? Silence expands until Dorothy Whitaker clears her throat. I think we'd all like a deeper dive, Dr. Ward. Of course, I say, nodding to Margot, who hands around tablets loaded with another report. You'll also find the results of a forensic review of the Innovation Division. Vanessa's color drains as she scrolls. We've identified a pattern of falsified reports, recycled demos, and plagiarism, I say flatly. Page 12 outlines the most egregious instances. This is nonsense, Vanessa sputters, but there's no conviction behind it. And page 23, I continue evenly, details Richard's undocumented negotiations with Meridian Global to sell a controlling stake to foreign buyers without board authorization. Richard slams his palm down. You've gone too far. You taught me business isn't personal, I answer. Consider this a practical lesson. I turn to the agenda. Item 1. Governance restructuring. Richard Ward transitions to Chairman Emeritus. Ceremonial, no operational authority. You can't, he starts, then stops. His hands begin to rise. Item 2. Vanessa Ward. Termination for cause effective immediately. Outside counsel will coordinate with law enforcement on the fraud findings. Vanessa's chair tips as she leaps up. You think you can erase me? I'll salt this place on my way out. Security appears at the door like punctuation. Her threats trail off down the hall. I face Alan. CFO remains yours with 6 months probation under an independent oversight committee. Relief and resolve share his expression. I won't waste the chance, he says. Dorothy will act as interim COO during the transition. I continue. All in favor? Hands rise around the table one after another. Even Vernon, after an awkward beat, lifts his. Richard keeps his hand planted on the table. It doesn't matter. The motion passes and with it the era. In the atrium, cameras blink to life. A Financial Times reporter steps forward, mic extended. Dr. Ward, what happens to Ward Global now? I glance past the lenses to the glass wall of our lobby. My reflection flanked by the company name that once weighed me down like an anchor. I don't look for Richard's face in the shadows of the boardroom. For the first time, I don't need to. We do what we were always meant to do, I say. We build real things with integrity at scale. 6 months redraw a company's bones if you let them. Gone are the mahogany doors and opacity. In their place, transparent walls, open labs, collaborative tables where researchers scribble equations and argue constructively over coffee. The place breathes. This way, I tell a group of visiting fellows as we move through Helios Lab A. My blazer is navy and unbranded. I've learned that quiet communicates better than labels. Every workstation routes into the central compute cluster. No bottlenecks, no silos. A young scientist near the back, curly hair, eyes alight, raises her hand. Dr. Ward, is it true stability cracked 80 minutes? I grin. 87 and climbing. And please, call me Elena. Later I stand in the same boardroom where they tried to sign away my future. Now the table holds framed patents. Quantum imaging with a 96% detection rate in early trials, secure lattice encryption hardened by our stability window, low-energy transfer models that shave kilowatts where none were thought replaceable. Directors listen, really listen. Targeted quantum imaging detects cellular changes 3 years earlier than conventional methods, I explain. Skepticism transforms into something I haven't seen in this room before. Awe. A soft knock. The door opens. My mother, Lydia Hartward, steps in hesitantly. No pearls. No practiced armor. A simple gray dress. She looks smaller than the roles she used to play. I didn't mean to intrude, she says, not quite meeting my eyes. You're not, I say, wrapping the meeting quickly. When we're alone, I slide a folder toward her. I'd like you to consider running the Ward Foundation. Her fingers tremble as she opens it. After everything, she whispers. Grandmother believed in repairing what can be repaired, I say. And accepting what can't. She nods, grateful, ashamed, determined, all at once. By late afternoon, flutes clink in the commons as my original team, now division heads, gathers. Ian lifts a glass. To Elena, he says. Who refused to sell physics short just because some people didn't understand it. Laughter ripples. Mira teases Jonah about his espresso obsession. Talia holds court over an animated debate on error correction. Alan hovers at the edge, then joins us, the habit of caution not quite shed. He's different now, decisions cleaner, numbers straighter. Integrity looks good on him. Before I leave, I detour past my office. A young physicist, Alyssa Nguyen, waits at my desk, papers splayed like wings. Everyone says my approach is too theoretical, she says. Too ambitious. I recognize the look. I had it in mirrors for a decade. Keep pushing, I tell her. The quiet ideas are usually the ones that crack the world open. She exhales, shoulders lowering half an inch. Sometimes permission is the most powerful tool you can hand someone. In the hall, I pause by Edith's portrait, newly hung beside the first patent certificate. The brass plaque beneath reads, "Never discount the quiet mind, it's usually building a revolution." A news alert pings on my phone. Ward global market cap triples post restructure. Helios pipeline leads sector. I smile, slide the phone away and glance at the clock. 5:30 p.m. For the first time in years, I'm leaving on time. The revolution, it turns out, wasn't just quantum mechanics. It was a values audit. It was deciding whose voices got to define worth. It was choosing to build a place where results matter more than names, and where the people who do the work finally get to sign the work. And it's only just begun. The morning of Investor Day starts the way big days always do for me. Early, quiet, and with my hands on something real. I'm in Helios Lab C at 5:40 a.m., palms flat on the stainless workbench while the coherence graph on the wall climbs. 89 minutes. 94. 98. I exhale when it slips, then laugh under my breath when the system corrects. 102. We've crossed another line that used to be a wall. By 9, the glass auditorium is full. Analysts, journalists, partners, 3 senators, and half the world's curiosity stare up at the main screen. I don't start with a pitch deck. I start with a person. This is Ruth, I say, a photo filling the canvas. An elementary school teacher who volunteered for our early detection imaging trial. Her mammogram last year was negative. Our scan flagged a pattern 2 years earlier than standard machines can see. She had a lumpectomy in October. No chemo. She's back in her classroom. The room goes so still I can hear someone's bracelet slide against their wrist. We built this not to impress investors, I add, but to move outcomes. Then I show the carbon capture units snapping CO2 like Velcro in a pilot plant. And the encryption demo where a live red team attack exhausts itself against a lattice corrected by our coherence window. It's a lot for one morning. It should be. Questions come hard and fast. Dorothy fields operations with the steadiness of a metronome. Alan walks through numbers that make even our skeptics pause. Contracted revenue, margins that don't depend on smoke and mirrors. A risk register we keep visible by design. When it ends, The applause feels different than the applause you get after a speech. Feels like permission granted. The legal shoe drops 2 weeks later. Vanessa is arraigned on charges I wish I'd never had to learn the statute numbers for. Wire fraud, falsified research claims, obstruction. The evidence was ugly even before the forensic team finished. Her lawyer's posture. The judge declines the performance. I don't attend the hearing. I read the transcript over chamomile tea at my kitchen table and underlined 2 sentences, pattern of deliberate misrepresentation, and bail granted under severe restrictions. I don't take joy from it. But I do feel something steadier, a sense of the floor returning to level. Richard's counsel signals cooperation the old-fashioned way. A 6-page proposal stamped confidential, followed by an unannounced visit to the building his name still crowns. Security calls up. I meet him in the courtyard, not the lobby. He looks smaller outdoors. Maybe that's what happens when walls stop agreeing with you. I can help, he says without hello, as if we're at a familiar crossroads where my job is to pretend we are not. You can tell the truth, I answer. To the board. To regulators. To the people who worked here when you didn't protect them. He tries the move that used to win. A disappointed father's sigh. The sound that once made me shrink does nothing now. He studies my face, measuring the change. Eventually he nods. My attorney will formalize it. He pleads to a consent order a month later. Barred from serving on any public company board for 10 years, restitution paid out of a fortune built partly on other people's credit. A public statement that doesn't quite say, I'm sorry, but gets close enough for the record. I don't issue a counter-statement. I don't need the last word. I have the work. Lydia, my mother who once lived behind a string of pearls, doesn't sit behind a desk at the Ward Foundation. She moves. Site visits. Kitchens. Classrooms. Workshops. He comes alive where the money lands. The first cohort she selects makes me stupidly proud. A machinist turning ocean plastic into durable building tile. A second-generation farmer installing soil carbon monitors. A hospice nurse building a grief tech platform that doesn't treat mourning like a bug to be patched. At the first grants dinner, she leans toward the mic and says, I spent years hosting tables where the main course was approval. Tonight we serve capital and step out of the way. The room laughs, then stands, and for the first time in my life I see my mother in the role of amplifier instead of arbiter. In the lab, the numbers stop being novelties and become baselines. Coherence, 104 minutes. Target specificity, 96.8%. Capture efficiency, 1.7 tons per module per day. Alyssa, the young physicist who thought her ideas were too theoretical, wires a correction scheme none of us saw coming. It shaves energy cost by 12%. I write her a Slack message that just says this is the edge, and she sends back 13 crying laughing emojis and a picture of the ramen she bought to celebrate. Glory is small and human more often than it's grand. Ian heads clinical. Mira runs algorithms. Jonah builds out edge compute like he's been managing fleets since kindergarten. Talia grows carbon from pilot to platform. Their calendars look impossible. Their teams look energized instead of wrung out. We're still a company, not a monastery. We miss goals. We fight. We apologize. We write better docs. But the center holds because the center isn't a person. It's a principle. The work tells the truth. Then the story circles back to the beginning the way life likes to do when it's trying to show you you're not the same person anymore. It's December. Snow frets the windows. The grand ballroom at the Waldorf smells like flowers and electricity. The Helios Gala benefits the foundation. Last year I stood alone in a kitchen serving a turkey to people who couldn't pronounce what I do for a living. This year I stand at a lectern handing checks to women who don't need me to explain anything. They just need algebra and room. Success takes talent, I say into the lights, and it takes boundaries. Tonight we fund both. I hand the mic to Lydia, who introduces a high school robotics team we sponsored. They swarm the stage in matching hoodies and chaos. I cry in the wings and pretend it's the lighting. Alan finds me near the silent auction, his tie already loosened. 38% year over year, he says without preamble, and cash flow positive in every unit. Audit committee wants to buy me dinner. I'll sign the expense report, I tell him. We both laugh at how far that joke has traveled. A cluster of reporters forms, then parts. Richard stands just past them, hands empty. He didn't receive an invitation. I sent him one anyway. Boundaries, not walls. He waits until the line thins. Your speech was measured, he says. So's our cap table, I answer lightly, because humor is the only bridge I'm willing to build tonight. Can we? He starts, then edits himself. I read the imaging paper. It's impressive. Thank you, I say. We stand in a pocket of quiet while a quartet works through variations on Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. The holiday that used to make my stomach knot now feels like a season again, not a verdict. I won't ask to come back, he says finally. I know the answer. I nod. It is kind to say the true thing plainly. You're welcome to observe the public days. The archives are accessible under staff supervision. The Foundation's events list is online. That's what I have. He swallows and nods. It's more than I deserve. I don't argue. He slips away. The room reforms around the space he leaves. 2 weeks later, Vanessa's trial begins. I still don't go. Dorothy attends one session to fulfill a board duty and reports back simply, the system did what it's supposed to do. There's no glee in her voice. Accountability shouldn't require glee to feel complete. An editor from Nature emails the same day. Your team's submission clears peer review. Revisions are light. I forward the note to the lab with the subject line Alyssa did the impossible and also we all did too. The thread explodes like a fireworks stand, and then an hour later everyone is back in their notebooks as if nothing happened. Which is exactly right. Spring pushes against the glass. We dedicate our first community clinic, a pilot partner site running the imaging platform at cost. A ribbon stretches across a doorway that opens into rooms filled with machines we once only sketched. A nurse shows me how they tune the interface so patients see a calm blue arc instead of a wall of numbers. I take a photo and send it to the design team with best bug we never would have found in-house. A month later, the first carbon partner reports hitting their emissions target a year ahead of schedule. The plant manager, a woman whose hands tell you everything about work, stands in front of a module and grins with all her teeth. Didn't think it was real, she says into a local news camera. Now I think anything is. In May, Alyssa wins a Young Investigator Award and forgets her acceptance speech. She looks over at me panicked and I just raise both thumbs from the back of the hall. She laughs into the mic, says, "My boss told me to keep pushing," and sits right back down. It is perfect. We rename the company in June. Not because I want my name bigger but because I want it accurate. Ward Global never fit what we do. We become Helios Dynamics with a small plaque in the lobby that reads, "Founded as Ward Global, rebuilt by its people." No heroes carved in stone. No origin myth forgiven by scale. Just a record of a pivot and the reason for it. Before the unveiling, I take the old brass Ward letters to Edith's grave. I set them in the grass, wipe the summer dust from the V, and sit at the base of the stone that taught me more about leverage than any textbook. They wrote ahead for me. I tell her, palm on cool granite. You taught me how to read it. The wind moves through the trees like breathing. On the 1-year mark, I return to the room where I used to be smaller. Not my parents' dining room, I don't need that tour anymore, but the old boardroom where the first papers slid across the table. We knocked down the wall and turned it into Commons North. The heavy table lives in a museum now. In its place, round tables, mismatched chairs, a whiteboard stretching from floor to ceiling, already full of ghost equations. We host a potluck. No caterers. No RSVPs in calligraphy. People bring whatever they actually cook. Mira surprises everyone with samosas. Jonah grills halloumi on an electric griddle he swears is OSHA compliant. Alan shows up with a still warm apple pie and a sheepish smile that says he bought it on the way and that it's fine. I stand by the windows as the sun takes its time setting over a city that once felt like a verdict and now feels like an address. For a moment, I picture the girl in the basement lab 6 years ago. Tired, stubborn, unsure if the math would ever love her back. I wish I could send her a photo of this room. Not to prove anything to the people who didn't believe but to prove something to the one who did. Lydia joins me, 2 paper plates in hand. The robotics girls want to show you their drone, she says. It carries cupcakes. Does it drop them? I ask. Of course it drops them, she says, delighted. We walk back into the thrum. Dorothy tells a terrible joke. Alyssa pulls me over to a whiteboard to show me a correction that makes my heart do the thing caffeine can't. Someone starts music and the sound is like a room remembering itself. When I finally slip my badge on its hook and head for the elevator, I check the time out of old habit. 5:28 p.m. I smile. Not because I beat the clock but because the clock and I agree. Outside the evening is generous. I text the group chat a photo of the sky. Never discount the quiet evening, I write. It's usually where the revolutions catch their breath. At home, I take the letters word from the trunk and set them on my bookshelf below the patent that started this chapter. I leave a space open beside them for the things we haven't built yet. The living room smells like lilacs from the cutting Lydia brought last week. I open my laptop to a draft shared by half the lab. The title line blinks. We are not done. We are not ever done. We are, finally and fully, exactly who we said we were. And that, more than any courtroom contract or headline, is the only revenge I ever wanted.